Hello and welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail, and my guest today is somebody who hasn't been on in at least a year because she's been really busy. She had to go back to school and take some more classes and things. So her name is Jen Overfield, and she is here to talk about nutrition therapy. So thank you for appearing on Fresh Perspectives today, Jen.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. Now, the last time you were on, I was telling you about these little boxes I make out of used greeting cards, and so I decided to bring some in today and let you pick a few out for yourself. So we'll start off the program with that.
Oh, I love that.
You've been looking at them. Have you figured out which ones you want?
Yeah. I did. Yeah. I've been eyeballing. There were a few that I was drawn to right away. But so how many should I pick?
Oh, maybe about 3.
Okay, 3. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely the wolves. That one was one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, that is a nice one.
And I'm torn between. This one was another one I had.
Yeah, that's unusual. That one there. Yeah, it's just a design rather than a picture. So
yeah, I like that. And then there were so many cute ones, but my eye went right away to the butterfly.
To the butterfly.
Too, so,
yeah, the butterfly.
Yeah.
Okay, those are some good choices. There's some cute ones. This was a wedding anniversary card with 2 dogs for the couple.
So cute.
And there's, you want to pick up that cat one? And that one, it's supposed to be a cat. It's a birthday card that says something about a total cat scan reveals that you don't look any older, I guess, or something like that. And then there's one with a sleeping kitty and a hedgehog.
So I love this one too, the landscape there.
Yeah, you can have that one too if you want it. You can add it. This one has a cardinal on it, and I have to say that for some reason the boxes that have cardinals on them are very popular. People like those.
Yeah.
There's a saying these days, when cardinals appear, angels are near.
Yes.
And then there's a couple here that are really nice. They're pictures of, it looks like the ocean. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I love the one with the birds in flight there too.
Oh yeah, the seagulls.
Yeah. And these chubby little birds.
That bird one is really cute too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jen.
Yes.
Now that you've had your fun picking out stuff.
I love these. Yeah. And they're very strong. Like when we talked about them, like they're very sturdy too. Mm-hmm. Nice and yeah, cute. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So, anyways, that's just to add a little bit of fun to the interview. Okay, so you basically, it's been, I think, a little bit over a year actually since you were on last time.
Last time?
And you were, you kind of weren't able to do one back in the fall because you had gone back to school.
Yeah.
What had you gone back to school for then?
Yeah. So, 2023 was a busy year. We changed over, so I work from Western New York Whole Body Health, which was previously Barkstrom Natural Health. So at the beginning of 2023, we had our business changeover with our new name. So it was very busy doing everything that was, involved in that process. And then on top of that, I was doing my advanced certification for the nutrition response testing technique.
Oh, okay.
So I was completing the master program of that. And then also I had learned, which I was planning on doing, but I was planning on doing it at a later time. But as things lined up, it needed to be done. It needed to be done when it was. So it turned out that everything kind of happened all at once. So I also needed to complete the nutrition therapy practitioner certification. And because in what I do, I don't have a medical license, but a specific certification is required.
Okay.
And so I began that process, which was about a year long, and ended up doing both of those schooling programs at the same time.
Wow.
Which was
You were really busy,
yeah.
weren't you?
It was a busy year. Yep. It was great. It was. I learned so much. But it was definitely a heavy workload there this last year. So
I can imagine it. It sounds like it was. So where did you have to go for this?
So the nutrition therapy, or I'm sorry, the nutrition response testing, that's done out of Clearwater, Florida. So I attend Ulan Nutritional Systems for that technique. So that's a form of applied kinesiology. It's using a combination of American, Japanese, German, and traditional Chinese medicine. It kind of draws in from a lot of that.
Oh, wow.
Those
So you
techniques.
literally had to go to Florida then?
Yeah, well, they do a hybrid program. So
Okay.
it was both online and then in person.
Oh, okay.
So you learn, you have a bit of time where you do the online classes that are all live, you're there all together. And then, so you learn it in sections. So you learn it and then you apply it. You go back and do more and apply more. And then you go down in person for the hands-on drills. And that's because you're testing acupressure points on the body. And so it's really important to make sure all of those techniques are as fine-tuned as possible. So it is, it was, traveling like that can be tricky, but I always say, the universe knew exactly what it was doing when it put my school on the beach, because it made, anytime I had to go down, the Clearwater area is so pretty. So even though it was a lot of work and, your brain is trying to take in all the info, at the same time, at the end of the day, you had a beautiful environment to spend a little bit of time in. So.
Oh, that's good. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed yourself.
Thanks.
And then the other one was nutrition something or the other?
Yeah, I know. Nutrition therapy practitioner, and that's through the Nutrition Therapy Association, and that one is all online. That one was pretty constant, so that was a lot heavier workload consistently. So instead of having the stints of time and then where you're learning and applying it afterwards or practicing it, with this one it was constant, typical to your standard school programs. So that one was all online. It was a combination of live video classroom sessions, and then
So you didn't have to
the
travel
modules.
anywhere?
I didn't have to travel for that
Okay.
one. No. So that one was, that one was a little easier that way, logistically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So with that one you really delve into the systems of the body, not just anatomy, but then just all the foundations of nutrition. So things like our blood sugar regulation and cardiovascular, hydration, fatty acids, all the basic, all the very most basic things that the body needs to be able to be in optimum health.
Well, speaking of, blood sugar levels and so forth and like that, I've been running into a lot of information lately that has that I've been finding out from some very famous research doctors, that as far as diabetes is concerned, type 2 diabetes, Well, now they're saying that that it's actually the type 2 diabetics, their pancreas actually does make insulin, but what happens is that, you know, like the standard American diet, there's a lot of fat in the standard American diet, and that what happens is the person's body cells get kind of gummed up with fat, and it stands in the way of the insulin getting into the cells to do what they need to do. Did you have you learned anything about that at all?
Well, we work closely with you know, the fats in the diet. Fats are so essential to the diet. It's they're one of those things that, you know, years ago, 40, 50 years ago, or plus now actually, for a while there they were saying everything needed to be low fat. You know, the fats were too dangerous for the body. But when they did that, they then saw a lot of the most major health issues, especially heart issues, all of a sudden got worse. And so it was discovered that, in fact, we do need fats, but they needed to be specific fats. And so that was what was most important.
What's known as the good kind of fats.
Yep, there was the good ones and the ones to kind of look out for. And so from what I've noticed, especially when I'm working with people, what I see most often actually is a lack of fats, unless it's something where you know, somebody's trying to compensate in some way. But generally speaking, as far as those healthy fats, I see a lot of people cutting those out, or thinking that they're going to add to weight or that they're going to add to cholesterol. But I think it's imperative. Our brain is almost all fat. You know, our cells have to have a layer of fat around them in order for nutrients to actually absorb into them. Our hormones, you know, there's so many systems of our body, especially our female body, that needs to have a really good amount. So I hadn't heard, you know, when we've talked about blood sugar regulation, there's a lot of different factors that play with that too. And for my purposes, it's really about seeing what is specifically going on for each person. Because I think that's where we kind of get confused, because there's so much information. So like the things that you read from experts in their field, so they've got great data and research, can say one thing, but there can also be studies that show the other. And both of those things can be true, but it depends on which category you specifically fall under, right? So, so yeah, I think it's one of those things that as a blanket statement, it's hard to say, because I would never want to encourage somebody to cut fat out, because it is so critical and crucial. But it is important to know, like, what fat is getting into your diet? Was the source good quality? And then look at the percentage maybe from there.
Well, I think as far as fats are concerned, the thing to do is to eat whole foods.
Yes. Not
separated out oils and things.
Yes.
You know, to eat the whole food is where they're coming from. Because when, like, let's say, one big problem this day and age is so many products have what's known as partially hydrogenated vegetable oils in them, and that's usually in processed foods. And when it's hydrogenated, would you like to explain to the viewing audience what the hydrogenation process
I don't know if I can speak specifically to the whole process, but I was amazed to find that those oils can stay in your body for years. I always thought, you know, I think a lot of us think we eat something and a couple days later it's out, right? But elements of different foods can stay in our system for days, weeks, and months. And then learning that the oils themselves, in one of the classes that I was in, that was the conversation was, and I think one of them was found to be up to 6 years, that some of those commercial and trans fats can stay in your system. So it really made my outlook change on those days that I'm going to have maybe, I would maybe have certain treat meals out, and knowing now how long some of that can stay in depending on what oils are used. The nice thing is you can kind of change your decision making with that.
Right.
Yeah. But it's even similarly the fact that, so much research was showing how toxic those oils were to the body. But some had even been banned from use commercially or in restaurants or recommended not to be used, but we still find them a lot in our foods. And so it's really, really important. One of the things that we work with together with our clients and we do workshops on are nutrition labels and really being able to look and see what exactly is in something. Because one of the ones I use, maybe sometime we can make some do some cooking together or a cooking demonstration together.
We do cooking demonstrations once in a while here if you want to do that sometime.
Because one of my ones that is one of the foods that I think people don't necessarily think about, but it's one of the easiest things to clean up in your diet are your salad dressings or your condiments. Because people will be thinking they want to start to clean up their diet and get more vegetables in, so they'll go for salads, especially in the summer, which is a great idea. But then, unfortunately, a lot of dressings in the supermarket are just so full of extra ingredients and unnatural oils and dangerous oils, just mostly for being able to sustain shelf life. Yeah, I couldn't believe how easy it was to make homemade dressing and tastier, or just as tasty, and with just 3-4 ingredients or even less and some spices, but without exposing your body to some of those oils that are really gonna not do it any favors.
Well, the thing that bothers me is with partially hydrogenated oils is a lot of people are eating them every day. You just mentioned how long they can stay in the body. So when people are eating if they're eating something processed food every day, then it's accumulating. And the situation is getting worse and worse. Is what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. There's, in that same manner, there's like when we think about our allergies, right? So there's so many allergies that can absolutely be seasonal and environmental. But what we find is that it's really the body's ability to handle those things, right? So it has a certain amount that it can handle. And as it's kind of building up and getting exposed, it finally kind of hits that bottlehead, that bottleneck, and it kind of explodes out into symptoms. But as you're able to kind of alleviate that, all of a sudden you can handle that load. And it's the same way with food. I mention it with allergies because it makes me think of that with allergies, because it's amazing to me how many people can improve their seasonal allergies just by improving their food. Not to say that they're not truly allergic to a certain plant or tree or pollen, but it's the fact that their body is dealing with multiple things it's trying to handle, and whenever you make one better, the other gets better also. So, but it's that build-up to really pay attention to, and because I'm a big believer in, one of the things that prevents people from really taking a hard look at their food is not wanting to give up their favorite things.
Right.
Yeah. And I always say it's not about perfection, right? It's progress over perfection. I like that quote a lot. But the amount that you might treat yourself, I always call them treats and not cheats. People say cheat, and I hate that because you don't want to have anything negative,
Right.
But there's stuff that like you said, if it builds up, it can really cause some issues.
To where it gets to be more and more and
Yeah,
more. Like for things that, like you said, if you eat them, they can stay in your body for months.
Yeah.
And or maybe up to 6 years.
Yeah.
But when people are eating these things on a regular basis,
Right.
then large quantities are accumulating, and then it would be later on. It would be hard to it would be hard to clear them out of the body.
Exactly, and hard to know what exactly it was. So now you've got maybe, because likely it's probably more than one thing, right? And so you've got this buildup, and it's hard to pinpoint which one it is. And people have a lot of success with things like elimination diets and adding them back in, but they can be so extreme, it can be kind of hard for people to want to do or hard to stick to.
Right.
But I really like, so when we work with somebody in the office, we really take baby steps and we make small changes. And we just work to alleviate that overall load, right? We take out some things that we know are probably triggers, and we help find some substitutes that we want to have them be as delicious and easy as their regular go-to, to just give the body time to get that stuff out of there, and then be able to start to pinpoint what's going on. But I think that's really important what you said, because a lot of people, because we don't realize that that's in there. And so to somebody who says, well, I only have it, I only have that a couple times a week, or, I only have it once a day, something that's part of their regular routine. But it's builds up day after day after day. And so anything, all of that stuff can have an effect. So it's really important to be able to pinpoint.
Yeah. I go to used book sales at the local libraries in Chautauqua County, and I quite often, to the point where I think I have way too many recipe books for a really healthy diet,
Yeah.
And I can't resist getting it if I see it, if it's the very healthiest kind of diet. So then I wind up having to make some of them into gifts for friends, because there's no way I could possibly use all of those recipe books. And then on top of everything else, certain relatives will buy me
recipe
books for the plant-based kind of diet that I'm on, if they run across one, like for Christmas or birthday or something like that. So anyway, I have so many recipe books at home, I'll never be able to use them all.
Have you ever seen Danielle Walker, any of her recipe books?
I guess not.
You'll have to, I'll have to show you one of hers. A client introduced me to her, and she has one called Against All Grains, and it helps basically give alternative, recipes using real clean ingredients and alternatives, because we tend to get a lot of heavy grains in our diet, just in our standard American diet. But she has a recipe book called Celebrations, and it is it gives you recipes for all of the family favorites for every occasion, but it does
with real foods. Instead of instead of the
standard
classic
things, And I loved that, because then it's something that you can make for your whole family that they're gonna like and not be scared by. I'm a big sucker for recipe books too.
What's my problem? Then I have so many, and there's no way, I wind up using the same, couple dozen recipes all the time. So, now cholesterol is another taboo kind of thing. Now, I don't know, there might be a lot of people that don't know that our own bodies create a certain amount of cholesterol. So that total cholesterol count that they give you when you have some blood work done, that is a combination of both good and bad cholesterol. But I think on the reports that they give you afterwards, it does say how much of it is what your body makes and how much comes from animal foods. I guess you can't get it from plant foods.
The cholesterols?
The bad kind, yeah.
Well, so I've just kind of lumped dietary cholesterol kind of all together.
Oh, okay.
So I'd have to look and see what that specifically for the plant, but yeah, the good kind and the bad. Usually, I haven't seen it where it's broken down the percentages that at least when people are coming in with their
whenever I've had
blood work,
they've done blood work on me, it'll give like the total cholesterol count.
And
I'm usually not over 150, but then it'll show a percent, how much of that is the good kind that my body makes, and how much.
I see. Yeah.
So, but anyway, my cholesterol level is always really, really good when they do blood work because of being a vegan. So
vegetables are, one of the biggest things. I kind of obsess about it at the office because it's so important to the body, and we're not getting nearly enough in our standard American diet.
Right.
So, and I think even, years ago when they made the original food pyramid, ideally the nutritionists that were involved in giving those recommendations recommended the vegetables being the largest food group.
Oh, yeah.
And that wasn't actually what ended up making it to print,
Oh, unfortunately.
It ended up getting changed a bit,
Yeah.
But that is vegetables. Not only are they containing so many of those really important micronutrients and all the great phytonutrients, but they just help keep everything flushed out and cleaned. And so especially when it comes to cholesterol, that's one of the biggest, one of the very first things is that I always look at with somebody's diet is hydration, and then their vegetable intake. And of course there's the red flags of things that you want to consider, especially the fried foods and things that are going to be, that's one of the biggest, those oils. But it's amazing what the body can do when it has enough, especially vegetables.
Yeah.
And in nature, I think we would have been eating so many more than what we are typically eating right now on our, our dinner plates. We, it's a much smaller amount that we're exposed to as far as, we've got kind of our basic vegetables we stick to.
Yeah.
Right? Versus when we were in the wild and eating, all sorts of different vegetation.
Yeah, because there are certain times of the year when we eat, at our house, we eat things that have not grown in the garden.
Yeah.
That we've gone out in the wild and harvested.
Yeah.
A certain amount of things. Like early in the spring, we go out and dig up a bunch of what a lot of people around here refer to as leeks, and the actual name for them is ramps. So, and they are, I love the smell of them.
Yeah.
This is what early spring smells like to me, all of those wonderful things. And burdocks is another one, and you can eat dandelion greens. There's even certain kinds of flowers.
Yes.
I'll go out in the woods and get violets.
Yeah.
And they actually have a nice, the taste of the violets. And the reason I'm saying going out in the woods to get them is probably most people would not want to pick violets that are growing in their yards because maybe there's been something sprayed
Yes,
on them
good
and
point.
so
Yes.
forth. And but the flavor is so mild.
Yeah.
And then watercress I get in the spring from down by the stream. And,
Yeah.
there's just all of these wonderful things. You can eat rose petals.
I love that.
And those daylilies that you see all over the place in the summer.
Yeah.
Those are edible. And
Yeah.
something that we've had in the vegetable garden some years that actually has had to be planted, but is nasturtiums.
I was just going to say nasturtiums. Yeah, those
And
are
they're spicy tasting.
yeah, peppery. I didn't
A little
expect it.
goes a long ways
Yeah.
when it comes to nasturtiums.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had one year where I grew just a handful of some flowers, the edible flowers, because I wanted to play around with them and see what they were like, how they grew. And nasturtiums was one of them. And there's a couple restaurants in Buffalo, because there's a farm. Some friends of mine work at a farm, Plato Dale, in Wales, and they provided some of you could order your plant starters. And so they had nasturtiums, and they were telling me the story about some of the local restaurants that use them for these like fine cuisine meals. And so you could see pictures of these really fancy dinner plates, with rolled up leaves of nasturtium and garnished with these pretty flowers. And so I was excited to try them. They were beautiful to grow. They grew so nicely.
Yeah, they are beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the flavor. I mean, it's pretty. It's so pretty on your plate. And the colors, there. But then I was really surprised by the bold flavor.
Yes, it's you don't need to put any hot peppers in a recipe if you've got nasturtiums in them. Yeah.
Pansy. I think it was pansies too were one of them.
Yeah, I've never eaten pansies.
Yeah.
But they are edible also, are they?
Yeah, there was borage was one of them. But I love what you mentioned about going around even like on your property, because a lot of naturalists will say, your body is going to understand and maybe even crave and want the things that are growing in your environment because you're a part of your environment. And I always thought that was really beautiful, And so one of the things they encourage us to go out and see, what's growing naturally in your environment, and check out, what different ways that can be eaten. Whether it's always be careful, of course, but
yeah,
petals
make sure
and
you
leaves
have
and-
somebody. Make sure you have somebody teach you.
Yes.
First.
Yes. Yep. So I didn't do. I know people who do foraging, and that's. I think that's just the neatest thing. I stuck more to recommendations of. I
Things
actually
that you
grew on
could
myself.
plant,
To see what I
yeah.
to see what I could play with, but.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to just go out in the woods and pick mushrooms,
Right.
Because you don't know which ones are poisonous. You don't want to accidentally kill yourself.
Yeah.
So, another one now, when I was a little girl, I remember my grandfather having us eat something that he called sour grass.
Oh.
And one time, one summer when we had our annual herb walk for the Vegetarian Vegan Society, I remember this herbalist showing us some of this, and he's going, do any of you know what this is called? And I said, sour grass? And he goes, I don't know why, but a lot of people are calling this sour grass lately. And he said it was called wood sorrel.
Oh,
Wood sorrel. So So anyways, that's when I found out what the actual name for it is. But somewhere along the line, in a book on different kinds of edible herbs and things, I did run across wood sorrel, but it also gave sour grasses kind of a
As the name.
nickname for it, you know. So, but I
Yeah.
remember that, and it has a little bit of a sour taste. I mean, it tastes like a green, you know, that you just
Yeah.
put in your mouth. That's the thing that I've noticed about the wild greens compared to the lettuces and things that you get in the grocery store or plant in your garden. And there's a different kind of taste to them. I don't know if you know what I mean or not.
Well, I would agree. It's almost like there's like a vibrancy to it, and like I think too, it's whatever it is, the flavor, whether it's like a bitterness or whether it's it's like a sharpness or something. To me, I'm not sure if that's what you're thinking of, but it definitely, it's bolder. It's a bold flavor. I feel like it really stands out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rich. It's rich.
Yeah, I
tasting.
remember hearing a saying when I was a little girl. I can remember some old people saying something about what's bitter for your mouth is good for your stomach.
Oh, yeah. 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 I think just like when you mentioned earlier about the importance of whole food, you know, that's something that I think we've gotten away from in our regular.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we kind of complicated it. So it's funny because when I use the term whole food, a lot of times people, even that itself, are like, well, what are we counting as a whole food? And it's like really just the foods
It's
that
just,
we had in its original form.
you know, yeah, like it's like if you're eating a fresh apple in the fall,
Yeah.
when it's just gotten ripe.
Yep.
Now you're eating whole food.
Yep.
Now, when it's turned into apple cider,
Yes.
basically you have pressed the juice out of it,
Yep. It's been changed.
but it's not a whole food anymore because the fiber's not in the
Right.
not in the
Exactly.
juice.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
it's not a whole food. I remember one registered dietitian one time, I heard him say that he would rather, even though they put salt in, there is salt in olives if you buy it in a jar or whatever, he would rather see people eat those than the extra virgin olive oil, because at least the olives are a whole food.
Oh, uh-huh. Interesting.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
I always like the thought of, you know, when we talk about when we're growing our vegetables, you know, and how the difference between when you're walking outside and you're picking it right from your garden and being able to put it right on your plate, you know, you're getting the richest and the most nutrients right there because it's been picked the freshest with the least amount of time between the time that it was picked and the time that it's on your plate. Versus, you know, one of our first kind of stumbling blocks, I guess, between how our food system has kind of changed is then we're buying it in the grocery store, and there's been times where maybe that vegetable was picked before it was fully ripe, before it was really ready, or it had a really long transport time. And so we've lost a little bit of that nutrient value in that, just from that journey. And then anything that it's been done, any way that it's been changed, or anything that's happened since then. So then when we start to get into our packaged meals or our processed things, now it's been, you know, that content, that nutrient content has gotten smaller and smaller because more things have happened to it, you know. And so I think bringing that awareness back to how we can kind of incorporate these living foods or foods that were at their freshest, our body just responds to that so well. And getting back to our environment, the things that we can do on our own, and even that practice itself, I think, is so nourishing. Kind of reforming that connection to our food, you know, instead of it being an afterthought of things that maybe don't have the best nutrient value in them, you know?
Yeah.
And those are all things I didn't think about years ago before I got into this myself, and my health wasn't doing so well, and I thought I was eating well. I liked vegetables. I thought I was eating good things. And when I really started to look, I realized how many processed things I grab, or like quick things I grab, or how often food is kind of just an afterthought. You know, it's something that, you know, other things are kind of are kind of creeping in ahead of it as far as your attention.
Right. I've noticed since we've usually had a garden every summer in our yard, a vegetable garden, and I always did notice that I would have more energy in the summer than the rest of the year, because we would be eating stuff immediately after picking it.
Yeah.
And even while we were picking it, like, you know, like you get, you start going down a row of peas and you just, and you can't resist while you're picking them to shell them and throw some of them in your mouth. You know, raw peas, they taste the best when they're fresh and raw. And
I was just going to say, the flavor is just, nothing beats the flavor of, of like seasonal produce.
I know.
Yep.
And actually, I've had some experts say that it's probably better for you in the winter months, when the fresh produce has to be trucked in from other parts of the country or whatever, that probably if you buy the frozen vegetables from the frozen food section, they're probably fresher than what's in the fresh produce department, because they've been frozen right away.
Yes.
After they're picked, but before they're you know.
I heard that specifically with blueberries, blueberries like so much of their nutrients are preserved in that freezing process. So, and that I think is a great, frozen blueberries are a great summer snack. So sometimes I'll just have like a little bowl of those, and they're nice and cold, and pop those in my mouth.
Yeah, this one herbalist told us that as far as fresh blueberries, he said to eat as many berries, many berries that have not been sprayed or anything as you can get your hands on during the growing season, because of their anti-cancer benefits. And we just happen to have a few big blueberry bushes in our yard. I mean, we just eat them till they're coming out of our ears, because this herbalist said you cannot eat too many. You know how you always hear in moderation about food? He said you cannot eat too many blueberries. There's no such thing as eating too many blueberries. And it is very energizing to eat a lot of them. As many as you can, and you'll have tons of energy.
I think that the other thing with the summer season that's so nice, and the gardening is, or the increased energy, is just that movement itself. So the being outside and
in the fresh
air with the sunshine. Right now, one of the popular diets that we hear about is the Mediterranean diet. So that one's getting a lot of news right now, especially with the blue zone areas that they're researching that have the longest longevity. And I think that it's really, it has so many great qualities to it, that diet, but it's important to understand, like for our area here in Chautauqua County, our environment's so much different than the Mediterranean environment, right?
Right.
And so those foods may or may not, all elements of that diet may or may not agree with us specifically. But one of the biggest reasons that lifestyle was so healthy for those communities was because they were usually small communities that were growing their own food, or had more gardens of their own, or just like the local farm stands or farmers markets. And then because they're smaller communities, they're in closer proximity, so there was more natural walking. So even though they didn't have any, it wasn't that those areas were exercising more, there was just more natural movement in their day. As far as doing things like the actual gardening or walking places, and then the community itself. And I think when we look at health overall, those are really important factors too. We talk about so much about food and the physical body, but things like the movement, the way our body's actually moving, the environment that we're exposed to, our connection to our community, those things are all life givers also, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They say it's really good for you to have social contacts and everything. And, well, I think I get quite a bit of social activity myself, because I have this television program for one thing, so I have to have people come in and visit, and then being involved with the Vegetarian Vegan Society.
Yes.
That's another thing, that you form these relationships with like-minded people, and it's just wonderful. So let's see. As far as vegetables are concerned, now, I've had various different people over the course of my lifetime tell me that they don't like vegetables, so they don't eat them. But it seems like a lot of those people don't live to be really old either. I mean,
or the health maybe isn't the best. While they're I mean, everybody, from the way that I was taught, everybody is going to be different in the amount of any of the things that their system needs, whether it's those major macronutrients or whether it's whatever it is, the percentage or the amount that our body specifically needs is going to differ. But it does, there's certain universal truths, it seems like, or things that I feel confident in saying. Overall, these are things that would benefit, and that's and definitely looking and upping your vegetables would be one of them. Increasing your hydration is one of them. The CDC actually deems U.S. residents as chronically dehydrated, as a combination of just our lack of drinking water in general, but then a habit of drinking water. I mean, and then. We are drinking more in the way of maybe caffeinated beverages or coffees or sodas or juices.
Right. I see people in the grocery store with carts full of soda pop.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
And there's just no nutritional value in that.
Yeah.
So.
And again, like when we think about what our body naturally knows and understands, and so many of those ingredients, especially in the sodas, our system doesn't understand.
Right.
And so it can really cause havoc in there.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have read from time to time that plants are the best water filtering systems, and that we can get a lot of hydration from fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, yep. Cucumbers especially, those are...
Oh my gosh, yes. That I was just mentioning this to somebody else this morning before you got here, that any time that I might eat something extremely juicy like cucumbers or really, really juicy tomatoes at supper time, those are the nights when I will have to get up during the middle of the night to go to the toilet.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much liquid in them, so much
Hydration in there.
water in them.
I always think that when I eat a lot of watermelon, I feel
Oh
like
yeah,
I
watermelon too. Watermelon, probably watermelon is best eaten at breakfast.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, well that's when we like to have our watermelon is at breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, you know, as far as the amount for each person, that's what I love about the nutrition testing portion of how we work with folks in the office, is because you can test the body and see, you know, what is the body responding to? Yeah, what specifically does it need? And even like when we talked about cholesterol, you know, so much of how our body is going to process and understand and do any of its perform any of its functions, it's how is our body able to assimilate the food that we're eating, and how is it able to absorb the stuff that we're eating. And so really being able to pinpoint and understand, are there things in the way that are preventing this, as far as, you know, outside aggravants that might be bothering it, things like food that could be troublesome, or things like metals or chemicals, or kind of anything in that variety, getting that stuff out of the way, and then pinpointing what area of the body is maybe needing extra support, so that all of the areas can do what they need to do. And I just always think it's fascinating how, you know, when it can be something like the thyroid or the pituitary system, or you know, one area of the body that can completely affect the digestion, or the, you know, the heart, you know, whatever it is, the other area of the body, and it's a whole, you know, picture to look at. So a lot of times, like specifically when you mentioned cholesterol, you know, we want to all of a sudden kind of like hone in on that one thing, but it's so important to keep in mind that it's so many other things too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And different people's bodies are different also.
Yeah.
Yep. The one food that I know that I'm allergic to is kiwi fruit.
Oh,
Do you hear that a lot from people?
I think we talked about that one time too, and yeah.
It's like, I mean, literally, I can't keep it down.
Yeah.
I remember the first time or two, when I threw up afterwards. I didn't really give it too much thought until it kept happening, and finally, I must be allergic to kiwi fruit.
Yeah.
Because like about half an hour after I would eat it, I'd start to feel nauseous, and the nauseousness would keep increasing, and until I would throw up, and then and then all of a sudden I feel okay.
Yeah.
Once it got out of my body, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm finding out, at first I thought I was just kind of unusual, but I've actually found out, when I tell this to people, they'll say, oh, my sister is allergic to kiwi fruit, or my mother is allergic to kiwi fruit, or whatever, you know. So,
yeah, and even the amounts, again, like we talked about the amount of things. I had somebody who was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. So she had to be really careful about the amount of sugar, you know, that were in things. And she had a lot of these different symptoms that were happening because of it. And we were able to work together and get a lot of those alleviated. But all of a sudden she had a flare-up. And she came in and she was really, you know, kind of just bummed, because she's like, I thought these had all gone away and now it's flared up, and what if it's always going to do that? And
had she increased her intake of something?
Yeah, so I said, let's take a look at your food charts and see what happened. And so it was in the fall when, you know, our root vegetables and our squashes and all things are kind of coming up. And so she had a couple days where she had sweet potato and then some butternut squash, and they were all great things to have, right?
Normally,
they're
really,
healthy,
really good healthy
seasonal
foods.
things. But she had it one night and then had the leftovers the next day with you know, the extra thing that night. So it was like sweet potatoes and leftover, then the butternut, then this. So they were just higher sugar, higher starchier things within the course of 3 or 4 days. And so her body just got more of it than it could handle for those few days. And so we just spread it back out again, and all the symptoms went away. Things got back into balance. But it was one of those really nice things to remember, you know, even when it's the most healthy of foods or food you wouldn't suspect, your body is unique. And it's all a part of learning it.
Yeah, you just have to figure it out. I know somebody who has something called mast cell activation syndrome, which is an autoimmune disease. And she has to stay away from gluten.
Yeah.
She has had experiences when she was younger of going into anaphylactic shock after eating corn.
Yeah.
Or any kind of a corn product or anything, but she will not eat anything unless she or her mother has made it, because they put corn ingredients in so many things these days.
So many.
That she cannot. I mean,
risk it.
Yeah,
it's scary
when
when a reaction's that strong. It can be really scary.
It can kill you.
Yeah, yeah.
You know. So anyways, but she's pretty healthy, you know, as long as she sticks to, you know, stays away from certain things. She's okay.
Yeah.
So now one thing I know is I have heard that you were mentioning a thyroid problem, that large percentage of women have thyroid problems caused by the lack of iodine in the modern diet. And I had a thyroid problem at one time, but I don't now because I eat sea vegetables.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I found that I have to have them. I absolutely have to have them.
Yep. So important.
Yeah. Now, we're down to less than a minute.
I know. I was going to elaborate, but I didn't.
But
I better not go
I want you to mention to the viewing audience how they can get a hold of you if they want to. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. So, we operate out of Western New York Whole Body Health. You can reach us. We're right behind the Jamestown YMCA on the corner of 5th Street and Pine Street is our office inside the Medical Arts Building. Our phone number is 716-665-5015. Our website is WNYWBH.com. And you can find us also on Facebook under WNY Whole Body Health. We see folks for nutrition counseling, clinical nutrition, nutrition response testing. We also offer foot detox and Reiki.
Reiki.
Yes. We've got,
with
right now it's Barb Alba Weilacker who's in the office, but Shar was here visiting from before she was out of the office for a little while. And we also have next door, Ashley Wilson is doing sound therapy. So we've got a lot of really nice things in the office to help.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
that's
help wonderful. Kind of promote overall healing and health. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Well, we have come to the end of another episode of Fresh Perspectives, and I want to thank you again for coming on Fresh Perspectives today. I've had so much fun talking to you.
Thank you, and thank you for my boxes.
Oh,
I
you're
love
welcome.
this.
And I will see those of you in the viewing audience when I do the next episode.